Like most people don't know, right? But like an hour of content like this, it's literally like 2 months of content for posting. You know, so sometimes they're like, oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I cannot produce content. I gotta run my business. So you're telling me you can't sit down 1 hour every other month?
Yeah, it helps to just get started with something really small and then just get your feet wet and then just keep going. Here and there, just keep going after. And I was like, how's the big guys doing for you? And they're like, well, yeah, that's kind of how it worked. Yeah, and now we're doing well. You just go do a bunch of work and then you're not really thinking about these things. It's just bringing the money in. Yeah. But then later on, you realize that, oh yeah, I want to do other things. Yeah. Systematize, then the faster you'll grow. So, you need to bring in extra software and systems, and there's so many amazing tools now.
Caption, I want some, sound effect, and that's it. And then now, like, it's getting that good. So to me, it's kind of like we need more AI.
All right, so thank you for joining us today, Joe. So what we're here is we're doing the Creator Legacy podcast, me and Chase, and we're talking to entrepreneurs or people wanting to transition from a W-2 and start their creator legacy, right? They're going to become a creator instead of a consumer. That's really the goal here, and to kind of get different tips and different things and learn about your journey and how you ended up in this place. Because I followed kind of the more normal path, right? Robert Kiyosaki, I always reference him. Go to school, get a job, pay your taxes, get married, put your money in retirement, and that's pretty much like the plan, right? You can say that to like everyone, and they have that exact same plan. You got it growing up, but you diverted. And from my understanding, you diverted pretty early. Like you went straight into business right after you graduated high school, right?
Basically, I've never really worked for anyone. I had some odd jobs during high school and college where I was a W-2. But actually very, very early on, I grew up in northern Minnesota in a town of 180 people.
Wow.
And I started a business where I was selling roadside bait, night crawlers and leeches. So I was like, nice. I had a refrigerator out back. I would buy the leeches and night crawlers wholesale and then repackage them and sell them on the side of the highway. So I was like 12 years old when I started my first business.
Wow. 12 years old.
Yep.
I've noticed that. So there are people that like went into, a lot of people that go into business, they always had some sort of like small hustle they had when they were young, right?
Yeah, it helps to just get started with something really small and then just get your feet wet and then just keep going.
You're 12 years old. What makes a 12 years old want to thinking about money and stuff like that?
It was probably my mom who had sort of pushed me to do it because, we were up there and obviously it was fishing country. Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes. That's where I grew up. So lots of fishermen coming up there. And we had the perfect house right next to a road by the freeway where all of the fishermen would travel by. So that's where it started. And then after you start your own business, then you never want to go back and do anything else. That's how it works. You always go that way, but then you don't go back unless obviously something bad happens.
Once you get that bug in the brain,
yeah,
it's like game over after that.
It's more freedom. For someone. Yeah, more freedom and more money in the end, obviously. Yeah.
And you know what the difference is? Like when you're working for someone, it can be rewarding as well, but it's not nearly as rewarding as running a business, even though it's a lot more stressful and it's a lot more challenging and you're going to deal with a lot more issues and people. It's like at the end of the day, it's to me, it feels a lot better.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, so then 12, you were selling night crawlers, and then what? There's probably another venture that you went into.
Yeah, well, I did that for just a couple of years, and then during high school, like mostly during the summer, because people don't fish that often in Minnesota during the winter when the lakes are frozen over. There is still some, but not much. True. So then I was a W-2 for some various jobs in high school and then through college. And then I came out here, California, to go to grad school at Cal. So I was in there for 4 years. And then I won't go into the details, but unfortunate circumstances with our lab getting funding and everything. So I left with my master's. I was in the chemistry PhD program. And I didn't want to go back to Minnesota. Yeah. And so then I was stuck. I was like, what do? I could get a job somewhere, but instead I just started tutoring on my own. So I started a little tutoring business, math and science.
That's right.
That's the transition.
I have someone that might want to talk to you about that because she's trying to launch tutoring business.
I did it for a long time. Okay, yeah, I think I still have the domain eastbaytutoring.com, which is unused. Yeah.
Nice.
You might as well buy it from him.
Yeah, I just started it back in 2008, and then I ran that for a long time.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so then tutoring. So you started that right after college.
Right after grad school.
Right after grad
because
school.
I was pushed out. So during grad school, then you're technically a W-2 because you're working as a graduate student assistant doing research in the labs. Right, yeah. And so, yeah, you're a W-2 when you're doing that.
Nice. And then what?
Well, that's then when I started the math and science tutoring company because I didn't want to go back to Minnesota. Okay. So I could have tried to find a job, but that was back in 2008 when the economy had just collapsed. Yeah. And so it was a little bit tricky to find a W-2 at that time.
Oh, I bet.
So then I just
you didn't have work experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, you're like, I'm a tutor. They're like, so.
Yeah, precisely. Like as a graduate student assistant,
you
could be some kind of lab rat for a tech company or biotech company somewhere, but I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. So what was your end goal, like when you were doing that master's or PhD?
Well, getting a chemistry PhD and then probably going into academia. But it was a very good experience. But when you're in the dungeon level in Hildebrand Hall at UC Berkeley for 4 years with no light, you start turning into a troll.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to continue doing this forever. And I also saw how stressful it is to be in academia because these research professors have to keep getting grants from the NIH, the NSF, wherever they're getting their funding from. And the process is really tricky and it's very stringent. And so one of our lab grants wasn't renewed because one of the reviewers gave him something below excellent. And then, boom, all the money's gone.
All the money's gone. Wow. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of pressure on you as the PI.
When I was
principal investigator. I
didn't go for my master's, but when I was working under a professor, research professor, I was at San Jose State. My degree was molecular biology. And it's like all he was doing was writing grants, and minor in chemistry. So, but all he was doing was applying for money and writing grants and all that stuff. That's all he was doing. I was just running PCR tests for him left and right. So it was interesting, but same thing. It's like as soon as you graduate, you're just gonna be working in a lab. Unless you're a PhD, you're gonna be working in a lab under some scientist, right? Which is cool, but. Yeah.
But then even if you do make it to the PI principal investigator level, then you're still, you're a W-2 and now you're beholden to getting money by applying for government grants and various things. And it's stressful because then if you want to do the research that you want to do, you can't do it unless you can convince whoever's giving you the money that they should let you do that.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like a lot of the basic research in the US, the funding was being cut.
Really?
They want stuff that was just more immediately applicable. And so, that's why one of our NSF grants got cut, back in the 2008 collapse with the budget crash.
Yeah, because then those like 3 to 5 year projects like in stem cells or things like that, like those take a while to go through trials and everything. So this is mostly research level, but it's crazy. So then you started going into tutoring. You tutored, what age did you tutor?
It was mostly high school, and then later when my schedule got filled up, which was probably after about a year or two, then I started bringing on some other tutors and teaching them how to tutor the same way I did.
Smart. Coaching the coaches, right?
He was scaling. Yeah.
Yep. And so then that's where the tricky part comes in, because as a tutor for math and science, you got to know the stuff and then teach others who aren't, teach others who are socially adept. And can explain things, because we've all gone through school. You all have professors and teachers that are really good at explaining, and then you just get stuff like that. And I had a knack for doing that. So and then over time you just kind of keep scaling, you keep raising your rates. And so I raised my rates probably 50% or more over the course of a year or two when my schedule got filled up. And then when I just couldn't take anymore, then I would just start bringing on others part-time and then more full-time.
How much were you charging then?
When I first started, it was like probably $75 for a session, something like that.
That's good.
And I didn't do a hard cutoff after 60 minutes. I would do between 60 and 90. But then I got myself up to like 125 and then 150. And then I started doing some of the ACT and SAT and test prep, and then that would be more.
I think that's where the money is,
Yeah, they would buy packages. Yep.
Yeah.
They get like the math and the writing and ACT. It's a bonus.
Yeah. Well, so we stuck pretty much just to the math and the science side of those tests. But then I did bring on some other people who had skills in the verbal and the English. I could do that, but that wasn't my specialty, and I always try to stick with what my specialty is, what separates me from the rest.
Okay. Excellent. And then how was that and then you transitioned out of that?
Yeah, this was actually I mean, really around COVID is when I had that running. And then when COVID hit, I was kind of winding down anyway because I had taught myself how to program. I was programming in Swift and Swift UI with Apple.
This guy's got everything going on.
Yeah, so I taught myself how to do full stack programming. I was building some apps that I wanted to work on that were sort of law-based, but also more general, like task-oriented. And then I was transitioning down that business, and I just built a product, launched it on the App Store, and was going to try to get VC funding for it. It was in the law-related business.
Nice.
And that was March 2020. And so then there weren't very many venture capitalists taking meetings in March of 2020 for the next months because nobody had Zoom set up at that time.
Yeah.
The world just shut down.
Yeah.
And so then an opportunity came along where I knew somebody who was had connections to overseas manufacturers.
Yeah.
And then I started a COVID testing supply company.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
So all over.
Sometimes the market makes decisions for you.
Yeah.
You just, you might have to shut down or pivot. And this is where a lot of people might get stuck. They're like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And sometimes that's the right approach, but oftentimes the market pivots and you got to pivot with it.
Yep.
Just curious, like what was your annual revenue roughly with tutoring? Like if, say someone wanted to open a tutoring business, right? What could they expect from that?
Trying to remember exactly. This was a while ago when I shut it down, but this was running. I won't go into like my personal story, but I had some messy divorce stuff going on, which severely limited my time.
Life happens.
Yes,
it happens to all of us.
But it did well enough for where it's paying the bills. I mean, I don't know, $200,000-300,000 a year probably.
Well, that's good. Yeah, because that's all profit, right? Because that's all you.
Yeah, exactly. Minimal expenses with
like software and things like that.
What about the office, or like the kids come to you, or you come?
So we did all private in-home tutoring. So myself and my tutors, I would send out to meet with students at their homes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So you have to go to them.
Yeah. So it was catering to people who could afford it, obviously.
Yeah.
But the parents liked it and the kids liked it because then they don't have to show up to a tutoring center.
Why didn't you decide to like sell the business instead of shutting it down like that? There was not the coaches or one of the tutors that want to take over?
No, not really. Like that's the thing. Not everybody wants to be the owner of the business.
You're selling a job.
It's a little bit
basically.
tricky. Yeah, and it was one of those things where even though I had other people working for me and taking on, clients, I was still the core of the business. And so
they like you, they're like, I want to.
Yeah, and it's like I couldn't sell or offload myself. I hadn't put it into systems yet.
Yeah.
And built the entire corporate structure. So and I had done that for a long time, and I just decided to unload it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, I have this business. I'm bringing in this much revenue. I can sell it for XYZ. It's like you don't have an operations manager. You don't have a COO. You don't have all these different things. You can't offload anything. You're selling a job. People don't want your job. They want a business that they can just be completely hands-off.
Exactly.
Like when I was thinking about selling my marketing agency, or when I had started just kind of exploring, right? And they were like, you need so much work. But they're like, the main thing is you need someone that can run it completely without you. Right? Once you get to that point, then you can start thinking about selling, which I'm nowhere near.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, maybe.
Yep.
Awesome. So then now you're doing is that your predominant focus right now? You're designing apps on the side and then doing the medical. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, so the company that I started in March or April 2020, right when COVID hit or just after, we started bringing in testing supplies from China and Korea because the U.S. supply chains were shot. We weren't manufacturing enough swabs, transport media, test kits.
Yeah.
And so then I started brokering in things from China. So got my company, registered and listed with the FDA.
Nice.
And then I would help foreign manufacturers try to go through the approval process with the FDA to get their test kits or their swabs or their transport media under their emergency use authorization, is what it was called with the FDA, where it was an emergency COVID. We don't know what it is. There were no testing devices for it.
Yeah.
And so everything was being brand new, these diagnostic test kits.
Which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah. So then you got to go through the process to get the FDA to say, okay, these guys are manufacturing a legit test kit because there was so much fraud at the time. And then once they got authorized, then you could bring their stuff in, right, to try to get it out to the hospitals, clinics, labs.
Were those all those kits that didn't work? What do you mean by fraud?
Yeah, there were. It was crazy. The amount of just kits that just wouldn't exist. You would, send money overseas to some Chinese bank account and then nothing would ever show up.
Oh,
I
really?
never did that, but I know people who that happened to. But yeah, then also just test kits where they would just put things together that didn't work. They weren't actually real devices because there's so much fraud. Like all the masks and the gloves and all this stuff coming over too. But there was the least fraud in the test kit area, so that's why I stuck to that. I didn't want to do the PPE, the masks, and the gloves because there's way more in that.
Is that because it was a little bit more regulated versus like the disposables are more like, anyone can they're not really regulated at all, I imagine.
Yeah, they're a much lower like classification, and so easier to make a bad mask than it is to make a bad test kit and try to pass it as legit.
That's crazy. So you're technically in e-commerce, is that right?
We did a lot of e-commerce during COVID because people would just buy test kits, the over-the-counter test kits off of our website.
Yeah.
But the FDA didn't authorize over-the-counter stuff until 2022. So for the first years, it was just direct sales to labs, clinics, hospitals.
Wow,
nice.
That easy.
Yeah.
And then what about now? Are you still doing the test kits or is it something else?
Still doing that, but instead of COVID only, we've expanded to all of respiratory plus bring on some STI test kits now.
Gotcha. I imagine you're probably doing like flu test kits.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like a parallel.
Yeah. No,
it's about as deep as I'll dive into that one.
Yeah, flu, strep, RSV, things like that.
Awesome. And then the STI stuff. STI, is that a big market?
Apparently, yeah. It was kind of interesting.
A lot of people on Tinder.
Yeah, well, because before COVID hit, the CDC and FDA were really focusing on that because it was a growing problem, growing prevalence. And COVID hit, the focus shifted all the way over to that. But if you look at the data coming from our public health agencies, I won't go into the details, but the data is not good. There's a lot of STIs out there.
They're growing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone got the clap.
Like some people say like they don't believe in this stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
STD is not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear it all the time, like from all these guys, right? And I'm like, whoa, until it's real,
When your pee starts burning.
Yeah, when it's burning, then it's real, right? So
Great. I thought we were talking business, not burning pee.
Yeah.
This is business, right? It's how you're making money off people. But it's there's so much opportunity. So what is like some of the biggest challenges that you've had, kind of like doing what you've been doing recently, or even anything else that you've not struggled with, but challenges that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, well, obviously with COVID, the demand was just there automatically. People couldn't get their hands on supplies. So if you had them, then you were good.
Yeah.
And so for the 2020, 21, 22, super easy, just especially during the winter season, skyrocketing, and then it would drop off a little bit and it would come back every year. And so in the beginning, it was just working around the clock. I would have like a shipping container of swabs and transport media like show up at my warehouse, and I would unload it by hand, like 729 cases. Yeah, my operations manager got sick that day.
Oh, that's convenient. Yeah.
Of course, always like that.
I'm still waiting for you.
Yep. And so then it was just going through the process of, bringing on people to help delegate things to. And so at the peak of the season in 2021, 2022, we're doing special private labeling projects for people and just shipping out, dozens or hundreds of the over-the-counter tests like per day. Yeah. So then I had, 8-9 people helping package things up. Wow. Just at the warehouse and getting it out every day.
And then from the test kits, like you didn't design, you cut, maybe I'm missing a step here, but you got them from a manufacturer in China and they just sent everything over, then you put your branding on it?
No, we were just a distributor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we never labeled anything under our brand.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yeah, I would just help the manufacturers get authorization here, or I would find manufacturers that had authorization. But then when the U.S. supply chain started catching up again and cranking out enough product, then I switched most of my manufacturers over to U.S. I still have like one in Korea and one in Finland.
Nice, okay. Do you ship worldwide or mostly just the United States?
Just the U.S.
Just the U.S.
Because all the other countries have different regulations for testing device products. Yeah, don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, it's the regulations, right?
Yeah.
That's the most hard. Wow, so what is it? I'll let you finish your thought.
Yeah, so just, kind of offloading work and bringing other people on. But then COVID was a unique business because it went like this and then like this, after it comes down. And so now I'm leveling it out and then trying to bring on some new products to sustain for long-term growth.
Yeah. You end up with like a huge surplus of COVID test kit that you weren't able to sell?
No, I mean a little bit that I would have to offload at lower pricing, but I knew a lot of distributors who they went under because that's what happened to them.
That's what I heard.
And I had some people who still owe me significant amounts of money because they over leveraged themselves, right? But it worked out okay. During COVID, everybody said that they were the direct to manufacturer person, but most of the time, 80% of the time, that was not true.
Really?
And so I knew,
What were they doing though?
They would just say, oh no, I'm direct to manufacturer and like I'm the distributor, but they were just a broker in between, just connecting people. And so I knew that in the very end, if I wanted to create a business that was going to survive COVID and have an opportunity to grow later, that I needed to be the guy with the office, the warehouse, and the actual distribution agreements directly with the manufacturers.
And you had that foresight pretty early, so you set that all up beforehand.
Yeah, because during COVID, I had so many people who I'm pretty sure they would tell their clients that oh, we're a distributor, we're direct to manufacturer, but they weren't. They were going through me.
I was about to say they were buying from you.
Yep.
Wow.
And then just flipping it basically.
Shady bastards.
I mean that's how business is done.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
It's
then you're getting the sale, and then they get.
Yeah, they're basically like sales contractors effectively.
So
it was a legit business. Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow, that's
the e-commerce is one area I actually don't have a lot of experience in, but it sounds like you're doing mostly like not so much e-commerce. So how would you get like most of your sales then? Was it just connections, people you knew, and they would reach out to you, or?
I just sales contractors. Because there were people who were in pharma and medical device sales, and then when COVID hit, they knew that there was a big opportunity. So then some of them left those jobs and then would just sell COVID test kits. But some of them would just add it to their portfolio.
Okay.
And so it was mostly directly to labs, clinics, hospitals.
Oh, nice.
But
Did you have to do any door knocking or anything, or go to clinics or any of that?
No, especially during COVID, you can't.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you don't have to do it when there's more demand than there is supply, though, because they find you.
They find you.
Yeah, exactly.
How about now, though? I imagine your marketing strategy has shifted a little bit.
Yeah, and this is where we went down, and then I've leveled out now, but I want to grow again and get the revenue back up. Probably won't ever be able to get it back up to where it was. It would take years to do that, but that's why I'm working with somebody now to try to do more targeted e-commerce stuff through Instagram and TikTok to sell some of the new stuff, because the test kit space is actually interesting. It's evolving because the FDA is allowing more over-the-counter use. So, for example, before COVID, you couldn't get an over-the-counter COVID or flu test. We still don't have really over-the-counter STI testing, but they're going to go that direction. Europe has already.
Which seems weird, right? Because it's a basic thing, is my understanding. Which test? Let's not dive into which ones. But there's only 2 or 3 different tests, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different STDs. There's 5 to 8 prevalent ones.
Okay. But what are they, what is the test? I don't know. I've never had to take one. There's a swab one. Remember everybody talk about a swab one? There's a blood test one. There's
all kinds of different.
I'm trying to generalize without getting too graphic.
Swab blood and, urine collection, basically.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different types of collection methods, and the manufacturers have different approaches, and they have to submit different clinical data to the FDA to get authorized for that particular collection method.
You should see if you can get ads on Tinder and Bumble and stuff.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe I should approach them for a supplementary package. Here's your dating package. Here's your STI package to go with it.
Just in case you catch this flu season, make sure you have your flu test too.
Yeah,
it's a bundle.
Perfect.
It's the winter bundle.
Yeah,
Hyder,
you hear that?
The Christmas special. There's a lot of opportunity on social media, though. That's why I enjoy it so much. It's always changing. That's probably the hardest thing. Is every few weeks, I feel like it's something new or something's breaking. But
and this is where
lots of opportunity for you there.
Yeah, and I feel like this business is a good, legit business. It's serving a very valuable public function.
Yeah, definitely.
And during COVID, we didn't know what it was or how bad it was or wasn't going to be. I just knew that we didn't have enough supplies and test kits, and there was a lot of panic in the beginning. It was affecting people who were older and overweight much disproportionately. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do all I can to expand testing as much as we can, and I feel like we should try to do the same thing with STIs now, because it is ticking up. It's a public health crisis, and some of these things, chlamydia, gonorrhea, trick.
What's a trick?
Trichomonas.
I haven't even heard of that one.
Yeah, if you look at the data coming out of the public health agencies, like Los Angeles County Public Health, when they're doing these testing, the positivity rate's in like the 30%.
Damn.
Yeah, it's not good.
What is it? Is it? I
don't want to go into those details.
Google
we'll stick to
later.
the business.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's still doing something that's business that's good and will serve the public and keep us healthier.
What are your competitors doing? Have you already looked at them and see what kind of marketing they're doing?
Yeah, well, for the most part, the distribution space in medicine is, a few very large companies. And so the reason why I was able to make it during COVID and trying to still do it now is because when you're small, you can move faster.
Yes.
But what a lot of these manufacturers are realizing now, like, there's a great spin out of Stanford, and the company's headquartered in San Jose now for one of the STI products that I carry.
Yeah.
But they think that as long as they get their product out on the channels with all the big distributors, that they'll automatically become a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Okay, but it doesn't work that way, and I won't go into the reasons why.
Okay.
But after they realize that, then they will pick up a smaller, more focused company like mine, because we will just focus on their product and actively go and market it one-on-one.
That makes sense.
And the big companies don't do that.
That's what I noticed too, right? Like even in our agency marketing space, right? Even like bigger companies, like they like to prefer to work with like boutique, you know what I mean? Smaller agency, because now they actually get the results,
Yeah.
Big companies move really slow because they have like processes they have to go through. I heard this a lot when I was at like Google. Like Google's a perfect example. Is they would hire vendors, but then the vendors, they can only work with big vendors just because it's Google, right? And they're not going to work with small boutique places. But they said like a course being developed would take like 6 or 12 months. And that would take me like 3 weeks because they had to go through their processes, right? And it's like when you're small, you're nimble, and you can do a lot of different things, which is great.
Yeah, and a lot of the businesses, they'll go with one of the big guys first because the trust is there, the company's around, and they have a proven track record. But then once it doesn't work as well as they were hoping, then they start looking around and realizing that if they can find an organization that will focus on them and dedicate more resources and immediate time to them, then it usually works better.
Joe's like, right over here. I'm just waiting for you guys. Come on down.
Yeah, no, it's funny because like this company that's got the STI product, I tried to get a distribution agreement with them for well over a year.
Wow.
And they're like, no, we're good. We're just going with, these 3 big guys.
Yeah.
And then, kept bothering them here and there, just keep going after them. I was like, how's the big guys doing for you? And they're like, well, yeah, that's kind of how it works. So, and now we're doing well.
Yeah, awesome. What's your goal? Do you have an exit plan, or is this something you want to stick with for a while, or?
Well, I don't know. Because I rode the COVID wave, and then I just want to keep the revenue, putting systems in place now to systematize the back end and the sales funnels and everything.
Huge.
Offloading that, trying to build in some AI to help me do that. And the goal is to just get revenue back up to a certain level and then just put it on autopilot so that I've just got that running in the background, and then I can use that to, fund the other projects that I'm working on.
Yeah, definitely. So putting it on autopilot, is that like bringing in like a COO just to kind of run everything for you?
Yeah, exactly. Because, the goal, which I never got my tutoring company to, was to not have to be involved.
Yeah.
And for it to just, at least sustain itself, but even better, grow itself. But to do that takes a while. You got to bring on the right people in the right order. And when I started the tutoring company, I didn't have those skills.
Yeah.
And even when I started this company, I didn't. And I'm honestly learning them now.
You and me both.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting to that like 4th stage of business, which is scaling, where you're kind of going from the smaller revenue base, and then you're trying to like basically offload everything and find the people that will implement your strategy. Yep. Like that scaling mode when you're bringing more people and maybe more sources of revenue is tough for a lot of people, and that's why most people just get small and they go back to like where they're just kind of in that growth phase and they just stay there forever.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't really realize that there's a system for making this happen until you're probably around our age, because when you're young, you just go do a bunch of work, and then you're not really thinking about these things. It's just bringing the money in.
Yeah.
But then later on, you realize that, oh yeah, I want to do other things, and your time is valuable.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
you know,
we have less of it now.
yeah, like I don't want to just make money. I actually want to focus on a couple of other things that I'm building to more in the public good.
And I think that's something like a lot of people don't understand about entrepreneurs, is that they think people, they're just so focused on money. It's like most of the entrepreneurs I know, after they reach a certain level, they want the freedom, but then they're going to start giving back a lot more, and then they're going to start pursuing more things that would be, help everyone, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So for you, like, do you feel like you need to systemize now, or you want to grow a little bit and then systemize later, or you systemize as you go?
Yeah, as you go. I think they go hand in hand. The more you can systematize, then the faster you'll grow. So, you need to bring in extra software and systems, and there's so many amazing tools now. Airtable and Make and just a bunch of
Airtable and
Don't
Make.
say Notion.
I love
Don't
Notion.
say Notion.
Some people might do Airtable and Make. Airtable's good too. I just haven't. I'm already on Notion, so it's like I'm not gonna make the switch.
Sure.
I'm going like the other version, the Notion Zapier route, right? But the Make, when I look at what people are doing on Airtable and Make, it's pretty insane, even in just marketing.
Yeah, I know, and this is where technology is evolving so quickly that it's really difficult. You need to spend enough time to learn what you think will be the best tools in the end. Because I had Zapier for some stuff, but then it's kind of wonky now for a lot of things.
It is,
and now I'm trying to figure out how to replace it.
Yeah, Make is like next level. Especially for marketing, it's like huge.
Yeah.
If you need to do marketing, like there's some really cool automations where you can just like record like an audio file, and it'll kick out like 50 pieces of content for you.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And it's all automated. It's like you just put it in there, and you have all your B-roll in there already, and just. It's probably not perfect, but I don't know. The videos looked really cool. But it's one more thing to systemize, right? It's just like, because you're already working on 10 other systems. It's like this system would be great, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Yeah. So, when you're doing the research, you got to put in enough time to try to figure out what will work best in the end, because you don't want to make a mistake and put in all of that time.
Yeah.
But then when you're implementing it, just do like one little piece at a time. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Airtable right now.
Okay.
And I'm still learning Make and some other virtual chat assistants.
Which have gotten really good.
Yeah.
Like really good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really surprised with how good they've gotten.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, like a lot of people, like they fear about, let's dive into a little bit AI, right? Like some people fear like AI is gonna like remove all their jobs. But for me, it's like I used to edit videos, and it would take me forever just to create like 1 or 2 shorts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish there's like a tool that I can just like, we talk about it, right? Just drop it in, right? What do I want? I want caption, I want some, sound effect, and that's it. And then now like, it's getting that good. So to me, it's kind of like, we need more AI, I'm for more. Right, but obviously a lot of people there fear like their jobs and stuff. But I'm like, no, like the tools is there for you, right?
Yeah.
It's a tool at the end of the day,
True, and we can just help you make a better product in a shorter amount of time, which means that you can just do more with your time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the speed is the key, right? Something that could take you 5 hours before, you now get it done in like 1 hour. So it's like you got to try to implement it everywhere that you possibly can.
I might have you guys teach me that, because for my political podcast that I just started, I was like, okay, this sounds great.
Sign here.
Well, especially for shorts, like everything that comes out of this YouTube video will run through AI, and it'll pump out all our shorts and all our content for us, like tweets, Instagram. Don't get me wrong, I'm still setting it up. It's a work in progress, but it's 100% doable.
Yeah,
and it'll kick out hundreds of pieces of content.
Like most people don't know, right? But like an hour of content like this, it's literally like 2 months of contents for posting. So sometimes they're like, oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I cannot produce content. I gotta run my business. So you're telling me you can't sit down 1 hour every other month?
Yeah.
To maybe have your friend or someone, or you want a podcast and produce some content, right?
Perfect. Well, I'm glad I came here.
So that's our pitch to you.
Great.
It's kind of like 1 hour is enough content for like a whole month.
Interesting.
And we'll give that to you. We're going to give you all the raw footage and everything, and the edited footage, and you can use it however you want. And we'll show you like some tools on how to kick out as much content as you can.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Awesome. So where can people find you?
I mean, I guess your audience isn't looking to buy test kits. So I won't give you my company.
List everything that you want. We'll put it in the description.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of my social media handles, like for my personal stuff, is at Joseph J. Sweeney.
Okay.
So that's on everything. And you'll find a bunch of kind of odd stuff on there because I had run for a political office. So there's some politics stuff up there. But, my company is Rhino Diagnostics. That's where we do the test kit supplies. And that's just, at Rhino Diagnostics on a few different channels.
Joe J. Sweeney?
Joseph J. Sweeney.
Joseph J. Sweeney. Okay.
Yep.
Do you prefer Joseph or Joe?
I just go by Joe, but
okay.
social media handles, Joe Sweeney was all taken.
Figures. Jeez.
Yeah.
What's up with that? You got to go buy it from them.
Yep. And then the political podcast that I'm starting is just called California Politician. So all of that is at CA Politician. So I'm actually interviewing candidates running for California Assembly, Senate, and U.S. House races here in California.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just started 2 months ago. I've done 15 interviews trying to do this as a public service, all on my own funding, to get the public to know who their candidates are.
Yeah.
And then also building my own productivity app. I was basically not finding the kind of to-do list, habits, goal tracker, vision thing.
Yeah.
And so I literally just built my own, how I wanted it to be built.
Yeah.
If anybody else likes it, great, but I built it for myself. And it's on the App Store. That's Lion Task.
Yeah.
Lion
And,
Task. Okay.
Yeah, and that's all at Lion Task on the social media
Is that
channels.
on both the Android and iOS?
Just iOS. Yeah.
iOS,
I can
okay.
only program in Swift UI right now, Swift Data.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
Yep, for now.
Till he finds a partner to.
Or the AI just like
Yeah,
spit
yeah,
out codes
just
on the other
Give
side.
me how do I do this on Android as well?
Yeah, so those are basically the three things that I do. My medical supply company, my self-taught programmer for the Task app, and then the political stuff, because that's like the legacy, the creation that I want to make in the end. Because, America's great, live the American dream.
Yeah.
But once you get to a point where you have the ability to give back, you have an obligation to give back.
You do. I agree.
And so there's a big void. The public doesn't understand what our political candidates are doing in office, and where they stand on any of the issues.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to get your guys' help for, clipping up and making shorts and clips and editing the long form stuff, because then I can crank out that content a lot faster.
Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest thing. I love that you touched on it. Is that so many people don't understand, like most entrepreneurs, I would say almost all entrepreneurs and like political people, like they're motivated to like make things better, right?
Mm-hmm.
They only see like the snippets, and they see like the good or the bad things, but they don't realize the incentive behind it. Like most of the people have like some sort of personal legend that they're pursuing, right, to make whatever their goals are better.
And I feel like people are kind of waking up to the fact that America is great. We were able to build the American dream, but we're not anymore. It's really bad, especially for the younger generation. And a lot of the people in tech, they're extremely successful building multi-billion-dollar companies, but they're realizing now that if we don't have a functional government, that everything is going to be lost in the end anyways.
Yeah.
And so now there's like, what's happening here? So a lot of them want their legacy. That's why they're getting involved in politics now and trying to make corrections here.
Yeah.
So
we could do a whole episode just on politics.
Yeah,
or
for
many
sure.
more.
Yeah.
But people will instead tune into yours, because you're going to talk to people, and then he's going to have shorts posted everywhere after you showed him.
Yeah, it'll be
We've
all
showed
over
him
the
the methods.
place.
I see Joe everywhere.
Yeah,
15
just wait. California politicians just all over the place after this podcast. So
Well, that's
Awesome.
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Joe. We appreciate you coming aboard and joining us on our legacy, right? Our journey that we're trying to build, and teaching people how to run business and give them ideas on the different opportunities that there are in the United States, or worldwide for that matter.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thanks.
Appreciate you, bro.